How you doing, everybody? Welcome to Bitman TV, a growing community here on YouTube. So firstly, if you could like and subscribe to my channel, that'd be so kind of you. I'm trying to grow here. We're trying to get some interviews with UFC fighters and MMA fighters and boxers. We're trying to get interviews with you lot as well who subscribe to my channel. So thank you very much for being here. So I'm going to do a top 10 UFC fighters of 2022 from start to finish. So if you can stick around to see who my number one UFC fighter is within 2022. In fact, everybody, I'm not going to lie to you. I was going to do a top 10, but I'm going to do a top 5. I think top 10 is just too much. I think it's too long. Let's just do a top 5. Let's do a top 5 UFC fighters in the men's division from flyweight all the way to heavyweight. So here's my top 5 of the UFC fighters within 2022 last year. Honourable mentions, we have to mention Israel Adesanya. Come on now, he's a long-reigning middleweight champion. He beat everybody. He near enough cleared out the division until he got to his arch nemesis, Alex Pereira. So let's see what happens there. Alex Pereira, honourable mention. He hasn't lost. I know he's had about 3 or 4 fights. I know they were tailor-made for him, but he is the middleweight champion, so you have to give him an honourable mention. We have to give Figgy, a honourable mention for regaining his title back, so we have to give it to him as well. He's had multiple clashes with Moreno, so let's see what happens next in the next fight this month in Brazil. And also we have to give it to Usman, Kamaru Usman. Come on now, he was number 1 pound for pound. He was near enough on the way to drawing or surpassing Anderson Silva's win streak, and he lost to Leon Edwards, so we can't forget him. But my top 5 is people who have been on fire, who have not lost, who have been basically continuing to grow and on fire. So my number 5 fighter, firstly, is Khamzat Chimaev. 12-0. In 2022, he's gone 2-0 in 2022, 12-0 all in all. His last fight, he beat Kevin Holland quite in quick, dominant fashion with Darce choke wrestling. Before that, he beat the Leech, Li Jinliang. This dude is dominant. He's one of the best. He's quite flawless as a fighter, I believe. No one wants to fight him. It doesn't seem like anyone wants to fight because no one's really calling him out. I know Bilal Muhammad is calling him out, all respect to him, but besides him, no one else is calling him out. You don't hear any of the top fighters calling him out. You don't hear Colby Covington mentioning his name. I don't really hear anyone else mentioning his name, really. I know Burns wants a rematch, but you don't really hear anyone else mentioning him. So I think Khamzat Chimaev is one of the most dominant fighters in the UFC. Him against the top echelon fighters in the welterweights. We're talking about Leon Edwards, we're talking about Colby Covington, we're talking about Masvidal and Usman. I think he fares up well against all of them. So let's see what happens. But for me, Khamzat has had a flawless year. So Khamzat Chimaev is my number 5. My number 4 in the list is Leon Rocky Edwards, Birmingham stand-up. 1-0 in 2022, I must say, but that one was massive. The one was monumental. He beat Kamaru Usman, the number 1 pound for pound at the time, the guy who was running roughshod through the welterweight division. Before that, he beat Nate Diaz in a dominant victory, but in the last round he got a bit wobbled, and he did have a no contest against Bahal Muhammad due to an eye poke. But what can we say about Rocky? He fired the head kick heard around the world, one of the most monumental finishes in a title fight for me. One of the biggest upsets against a guy who is so dominant and has become the welterweight champion. He's killing it, a record of 20-3. And like I said, in 2022, 1-0, but the one was so massive, he had to be on this list for sure. Number 3 on my list is Jiri Prochazka. Yeah, I probably said it wrong. He's only had 1 win in 2022, but like my former, I just said there, Leon Edwards, Jiri's one was to become the light heavyweight champion by beating Glover Teixeira. He's had some really good wins. He beat Dominic Reyes. He's beat some formidable opponents, but the one that capped it off was him beating Glover Teixeira in a fight of the year fight. I think it was fight of the year in some publications versus Glover Teixeira, a back and forth gritty match which ended up with him winning the UFC Light Heavyweight Championship by submission. He currently is injured, so he currently has vacated the Light Heavyweight Championship. But as soon as he's back, he will be back with a vengeance for his championship. So Fury is my number 3. Number 2 on my list for the fighter of the year, in my opinion, is Islam Makhachev. 2-0 in 2022. His last win was for the UFC Lightweight Championship when he beat Charles Oliveira. Massive win within the match. He was dominant, took him down in fact, sat him down with a punch, took him down, arm triangle. That was it. His squeeze must be immense. He's previously beaten people like, he's beaten Dan Hooker, he's beaten Bobby Green on short notice. He has been on a roll. He's 23-1. That one loss was in the UFC, but he hasn't lost since. He is a monster. This guy is running roughshod. His next match is going to be against Alexander Volkanovski in Perth in Australia. I think it's UFC 284, I believe. But he is the man right now, taking over the reign from Khabib Nurmagomedov. Is the guy. Then my number 1 in the ranking, my number 1 fighter of 2022 has to be Alexander Volkanovski. 2-0 in 2022, defended the title multiple times, has beaten everybody, has been beating Max Holloway, has been beating the Korean Zombie, Brian Ortega, loads of other people on his way to being the number 1. In my opinion, his strength, his skill, his IQ, he is the best right now. He's the UFC featherweight champion, and he's going up to face the lightweight champion in Perth in Australia. I don't think there's anybody better than Alexander Volkanovski right now. He is number 1 within the UFC, and he is number 1 pound for pound anyway. So that is my quick run through my top 5 UFC fighters, and number 1 is Alexander Volkanovski. Thank you for watching, and you can like, subscribe. That would be so kind of you. Take care.